I'm Ashley Wagasback, feeding therapist, occupational therapist, and lactation consultant. Look forward to discussing all things feeding so that we can support you to bring your little one to their maximum potential so that feeding can be enjoyable for the entire family. Are you looking for a community of other moms joining together to support their little one through the ups and downs of feeding and gross motor milestones? The Thriving Together community is just for you. Find us on social media at Instagram, Facebook, and www.sensorysolutionsTherapy.com to learn more. We look forward to seeing you. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Feeding Solutions podcast. Today, I have special guest, Nikki Gomez. She's an occupational therapist. She serves children and families in the Baton Rouge area. She graduated from LSU with a Bachelor's of Science in Kinesiology in 2007. She then completed her Master's in Occupational Therapy in 2010 at the University of South Alabama. She has worked nearly 10 years in the outpatient clinic setting, and she's learned invaluable information alongside other seasoned therapists. She's a DIR Floortime Provider, which emphasizes building emotional connection and nurturing a child's development in a supportive environment. Driven to make a meaningful impact, she's delved into understanding the underlying factors contributing to various symptoms, aiming to create a more profound, lasting change in health. She was inspired by the work of Dr. Martha Herbert, who has asked the question, autism a brain disorder or a body disorder that affects the brain? She has spent the past 5 years working for herself, focusing on partnership with families to empower, educate, and implement lifestyle changes for functional improvements. She has additional qualifications as a certified functional nutrition informed professional and documenting hope health coach. Nikki lives with her husband and 2 children, Cohen and Chloe. Welcome.
Hello. So good to be here. So good.
Absolutely. Well, our paths crossed. I don't think it's by chance, but you are best friends with Dr. Lacey, who I refer to all the time for frenectomy support with kids. And so she was the one that connected us together. She's like, Ashley, I think you and Nikki would really like each other. And
yes.
And I've learned so much from you just in the short time that we have been texting and talking. And I knew that I just had to bring you on because one of the big parts of this podcast, first and foremost, it is to empower parents to provide the best resources for their families to move them to like the healthiest version of themselves. So yes, it's the Feeding Solutions podcast, and a lot of it is supporting parents with infants with feeding difficulties. But in that space, it's like the reason why we're talking about maybe having a tongue tie release is because we want the best outcomes for them now if they're having breast or bottle feeding struggles, but it really has a lifelong impact. So it was a no-brainer to bring you on because you understand that, and you have such a great wealth of knowledge from the functional nutrition side. So tell us a little bit about what you're doing, about yourself, and kind of just educate us a little bit more what you're about.
All right, let's go for it. So yes, working with children with neurodevelopmental disorders for almost 15 years now. I saw so many families through the years come in and present with multitude of symptoms. And I just felt like my occupational therapy toolbox was not enough. I wanted to know why these symptoms were here, what was going on. And my mother can attest, I was always the child saying, but why? But why is this? Why is that? And so to just have a diagnosis and not really know where that was coming from or why that children presented with those symptoms wasn't good enough for me. So then I found Dr. Martha Herbert. She's a pediatric neurologist, retired now, but did amazing work for decades and taught at Harvard Medical School for a little bit and did tons of research. She's highly published. And I just loved her work because she was asking those same questions. So she came out with the paper in 2005 on autism, a brain disorder or a body disorder that affects the brain. And then she wrote a book in 2013 called The Autism Revolution. And she basically spells out for parents in very, good layman's terms as much as she could with the help of another writer on how to do this work as a family for your children. And so it was such a resource, and I just dove into that. And then that connected me to an organization called Documenting Hope. And then Documenting Hope is done research of their own and is an amazing parent resource. They have webinars every month. They have just a catalog of, you can go into the search and type in what you're interested in learning more about, and then a plethora of free resources come available to parents. I mean, it's an incredible organization and the things that they've done. So through learning all of those things, I started to evaluate children in a total load perspective. So what that means is you have a set of symptoms, and those symptoms are typically connected to a set of life stressors. And it's not stress in like the mainstream term that we're thinking. Parents are like, oh, my kid's not stressed. But we think about bodily stressors, like how is the diet? How is the sleep quality? How are they spending time? What is their environment like? Are they moving? How are their relationships? Are they stressful? Are they, regulating? So once you start uncovering the stressors in that child's life, and there's a multitude of them and they're never the same, then it kind of provides a roadmap for reverse engineering this and what needs to be supported. And with that support comes improvement in their functional outcomes. So, looking at total load, looking at the whole body, recognizing that it is a whole body. Our current system is so segmented, and I think it kind of misses seeing the forest versus the trees. The GI system is highly connected to the immune system. The immune system and GI system are highly connected to the brain. And so we can't just say this is a nervous system problem and not consider the whole body and how it's all coming together. I believe anyone has the capacity to have enough stressors to push themselves into a diagnostic category, if that makes sense. And it just depends on when those stressors are. Are they in utero? Are they in your 20s in college? Are they in your 30s after a baby? Like when is that total amount of stressors too high for the body to hang on any longer? And then that's whenever you're going to see symptom expression. Sometimes it's enough to push you into a diagnostic category. Sometimes it's not. And it looks different depending on the age and what's at play there. And then genetic susceptibilities of that person. So the total load approach really helps people think about, what do I do, not to just put a Band-Aid, but to really support my body so that it can heal itself and be more effective in living in today's world.
Yeah. So what are some of those viewpoints, like the holistic viewpoints that you're taking when you look at just a client and what's going on?
I always look at health history, and I start thinking about we're learning so much about the microbiome. And I think that's why it's so important to have these conversations, because the evidence is becoming more and more clear that the modern living that we do today is not really helpful for our microbiome, and maybe is creating lots of changes in the microbiome that's not health giving and really putting us as humans at a detriment. So the things that disrupt a microbiome are the way we're being birthed, birthing practices, foods that we're eating, chemicals in those foods that we're eating can disrupt the microbiome. Well, let me digress. Microbiome, what is that? Maybe some of your listeners haven't heard of that, but that we have microbiomes all over our body. There's the oral microbiome, there's the skin microbiome, but particularly the gut microbiome is just a balance of our good, commensal, beneficial gut bugs and the opportunistic and not so great gut bugs. So you want a healthy balance there with more good guys doing all their good jobs that they're responsible for and not an overgrowth of the bad guys. And whenever there is an overgrowth of the bad guys, we're seeing immune disruption. We're seeing neurological symptoms. We're seeing eczema on the skin. We're seing food allergies, constipation. Lots of things are stemming from this imbalance. So what causes that? Foods and the chemicals, what we're eating, birthing, antibiotics, some medications, PPIs, that's commonly prescribed for babies that have reflux. So sanitization, like COVID, it was just like so much hand sanitizer, a baby crawling around on the ground and, getting a lot of diversity in their microbiome is very appropriate. So sometimes that kind of interferes with that. So I like to go back and see what are the hits there and how can we support that system. And how do we support it? We support it by feeding the good guys, feeding those positive bugs, those good gut bugs. And what do they like? They like fiber. They like phytonutrients, as in things that come in real food that you grow and pick outside. They like fermented foods. That is not as popular in our community. I love, you'll see lots more fermented foods in Asian populations, and they're living longer. Right. They're living healthier. So, that's a piece of it, not the whole thing. But so we look at that. I love that you brought Lacey on. She's going to talk about that sleep disordered breathing component that I think is so underdiagnosed. If my little one's walking around with their mouth open, that mouth open posture, I immediately think, are we sleeping with our mouth open? Are we getting proper oxygenation at night? Sleep is imperative for us to detoxify and clean out all the gunk of the day. And if that child is not able to do that, then of course we would see more symptoms. We look at immune dysregulation. How many times as an OT have you been called in to a toddler situation where emotional regulation is the presenting problem?
Right.
And then you see them and they've got snot coming out of their face. They've dark circles under their eyes and eczema all over their skin. And, everybody's screaming. And I'm like, I'm dysregulated too. And I'm a functioning adult. So, of course they're uncomfortable. Right. And is it an absence of sensory strategies that we need here? No, it is a system, a body that is screaming for help. Right. And the help is, help me to not be so inflamed in a general sense. So I always ask parents like a question: do you feel like your child's diet is health promoting or maybe a health stressor? Just counting the number of real whole foods that they eat, taking just a basic inventory of that. And if they are eating mostly processed foods, what's in that? How many ingredients are there? Are there numbers in the ingredients? If you don't know how to read an ingredient list, you should never see numbers as an ingredient. Right. Because numbers aren't grown outside. Numbers are made in a lab. So, and those labs are making chemicals that just weren't intended for human consumption. So sleep, I love to ask about time spent in connection and positive relationships. I feel like we undervalue the power of human connection.
Yes.
and how supportive that can be. And for my younger ones, really teaching a lot of developmental norms whenever it comes to that. Like your 2, 3-year-old will not be able to self-regulate. That's not developmentally appropriate for them at that age. What
Mm-hmm.
they can do is co-regulate,
Mm-hmm.
which takes a parent and takes a parent's regulation and them lending that to that child. So I have to always pay tribute to screens at the same time. We use, screens can have projected our world. We're
Yeah.
so connected. There's social media outlets like this where information can be spread, and there's so much positivity there. But at the same time, I don't know if our little ones were intended to have that much stimulation and things going on in their life. And what does that substitute? Are they not moving as much? Are they not outside as much? Are they not running and playing and creating play on their own without being told how to play via a YouTube video? What is the screen time substituting? And with the lack of that movement and outdoor time, what are the detrimental effects to that?
Mm-hmm.
So just a very comprehensive look of what do we eat? How do we sleep? What are those relationships like? And how are we spending our time?
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously you're coming into a family's world to help navigate struggles that they may be experiencing with their child, but based on what you just said, you're really looking at the whole family. Is there any other part of when you are looking at that very big picture at the family level, anything else that you're working on to supporting the whole family to make a positive change?
So I feel like one thing I need to say that I kind of sometimes get so hyper focused on what can we do? What can we do? I
Hmm.
think is the component of respecting families and where they are in that moment
Yes.
and the capacities they have to do certain things. So, whenever you're on a health journey, and I'll call it a journey because it's ever changing and ever growing. And I think about the amount of information I've learned in 10 years and 15 years and things that the way we live our life has been a continuous change over a long period of time. And so I think it's easy for parents and families to kind of get bogged down with the amount of changes and things that they know maybe aren't health promoting in their situation. So I like to live by the 80-20 rule and knowing that no one's going to be perfect and you're never going to reach that perfection, and just not even putting that as an expectation for
Right.
yourself. Just those positive affirmations of I'm doing the best I can for my family today.
Hmm.
Tomorrow's another day. This is a journey. This is a continued process,
Hmm.
and ever changing. And then one thing I find, and I don't want to single dads out, but I find mothers especially are really good at taking guilt. Like we will take the blame for everything. And so you can kind of, in this process, start to feel guilty about decisions or things that have happened in the past. And I just like to say to shed and shield that guilt because it's not going to push you forward.
Absolutely.
And just keeping your eye on the long goals and step by step and not looking back is beneficial on a psychological level for moms in general.
Yeah.
And then so much self support. I think in caring for our children, we forget about ourselves. As parents, we forget about ourselves. It's constantly like a service, and you can't pour from an empty cup. So just self care and realizing that the self care that I feel maybe is selfish is really an example to my children of how to take care of yourself in our life, which can be busy and exhausting. So I'm teaching my kids to take self-care by taking my own. I mean, so many times I will walk in to a home, and I'm so thankful I get to work in patients' homes. And I'll tell that mom, go shower, take a cat nap, take a walk outside, meditate, be alone, go fill your cup. And that's probably the best thing that she could do in that moment versus sitting in my session, for that day, for that time. So I love supporting parents in their self-care and families in their situations. One day at a time.
I was thinking, what are some recommendations? Because I think sometimes like we think self-care needs to be like, I'm going out for lunch with friends, or I'm going to get a massage. And like, that's just not realistic for me in my life right now. So like, what are some simple ways that parents can start caring for themselves today, maybe under their roof without big time, money?
Right. Time, money, finding childcare, the whole orchestration. You're like, wait, this isn't relaxing.
Right. Yeah.
Now I've gotten ready to rush out the door and get somewhere. So I think it's best done in small chunks throughout the day, and then even I consider the small things, an extra long shower that I'm just kind of letting myself relax for a second, eating without distractions. And
that's huge.
Yeah, that's hard. That's really hard. Breathing. We take for granted breathing, and breathing can be so powerful. I like free things on YouTube. So bilateral music is something that you can listen to that kind of stimulates vagal tone. So I'll listen to music. Meditation is not something I've really taken hold of, but I know it can be very helpful for certain people. Stretching, elongation of our muscles. I think we stay either tense with our extensor muscles stayed on, or we stay in flexion, protecting ourselves. And so just stretching our body with those deep breaths can be helpful. Another thing that kind of stimulates vagal tone, that's kind of where my brain's going, is drinking really cold water. I know cold plunge is kind of a fad right now. It's not something I'm interested in doing, but I know drinking really, really cold water, even through like a straw where you're really sucking, is calming for the nervous system. And then just thinking about how food affects you. I know if I eat sugar, that my anxiety is going to be a little bit higher, and that my capacity to handle lots of stimulation is going to be lower. So I think about, if my blood sugar is not balanced, am I eating enough protein throughout the day to help me stay full and stay effective? So I think about how foods affect me. And we have to eat. Everyone's eating. So making those choices for your benefit versus not.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, that's helpful for sure. For sure. Do you want to get back to what we were talking before I digress the conversation? Just like whole family supports.
I think for your listeners that have infants, the infant time is so, so important. And educating parents from the get-go, from those early steps on what is quality food, what does that look like? There's a couple of apps that my parents have found really helpful. One's called Bobby Approved. I think there's a few others where you just scan the barcode. Of course, if it's a whole food, it's not going to have a barcode. But if of course, we have processed foods. We eat processed foods. No judgment there. but using that app to scan that barcode, and then it will give you the layout of what's in those foods and what are the implications for those things. I find that's very, very helpful because there's no way a family is going to be able to learn about every single ingredient that they use these days.
Yeah.
So using an app for that, super easy. For infants, though, whenever they're starting on their feeding journey and even into toddlerhood, they will learn to eat the foods that they practice eating. And you can't say many things are true for all children, but I think this might be one of those things, is that children eat what they are familiar with.
Mm-hmm.
They know from protection that if this is new, I need to beware. And so if they grow from the very, very beginning of food introduction all the way, if you are providing, because you're the parent, so you're the one supplying the food, you're buying it, you're prepping it, you're putting it on the plate. If it's all foods that are appropriate for their health, then that's what they will get used to eating. That's what they'll know. They won't know the other foods.
Right.
And sure, they might learn to love a cupcake. Who wouldn't? But at the same rate, they're not going to be asking for it because they don't really know about it. So I know a lot of parents utilize daycare since they're kind of at their discrepancy to feed them twice a day. So as an OT, I like to get involved with, educating the facilities and whatnot. But as a family member, if providing the food yourself isn't an option, then at least doing what you can for maybe breakfast before they go, or in those dinner time and snack and weekend situations. Making good food familiar is probably such a step that we don't consider.
Right.
So, and for toddlers, I'm sure I'll say this, not like you wouldn't know this, but it's developmentally normal for them to become pickier.
Right.
And so in the time you can fall into bad habits as a parent, and stop providing foods that they aren't eating. Toddlers are so finicky. They will eat something 5 times in a row and then not 10 times in the next 10 introductions. But I think parents don't get to 10 introductions. They stop, or they don't do that anymore. It's like, no, just it'll come back around. They'll start eating it again. I took the cutest video of my son. I mean, he's 4 and we still are adding foods. Like, never give up adding foods. He told me, I'm allergic to blueberries. And I was like, oh, okay. And then he took one, he ate one. He was like, he ate the whole pint. I was like, you're not allergic anymore? He's like, no, I'm not allergic anymore. So just, and he really hasn't eaten blueberries in a good year. But don't give up. Right. Like if I wouldn't have put him on the table, he wouldn't have had that opportunity to get over his allergy. He didn't really ever have an allergy, just to clarify.
Right.
To move past that. So I think just we're thinking of the end game. We're thinking of, and toddlers may not eat a lot. Their appetite goes down so much and they're so on the go. So sometimes I'll tell parents, they feel like they need to digress to those really hyper palatable, ultra processed foods because that's all they're going to eat. It's like, well, they might just eat once a day, a real good meal. They might just kind of eat a little bit here, then eat a big dinner. Just give them time, because eating what you think they should put in their body might not be what their body thinks. Ellen Satter has a great division of responsibility where the parents are responsible for what they eat, when they eat, and where, because we're thinking about, being supported and the body and seating. And then the child's responsible for how much they eat and whether they eat. And just following that respect and division of responsibility, they will eat what they can.
I think that's a good point to emphasize, because in the infant stage, it's like so much pressure on us. We're going to the pediatrician, they're weighing, it's all about the weight, the growth, and how much the baby's ingesting and the ounces, and it's all on me, and I got to push it because the pediatrician's saying they have to gain X amount per day, and then at some point in the toddlerhood, you go into this mindset of exactly what you were just explaining. And I think it's important for families to know that that's okay. It's not like you have to keep at them and not to lose heart, be frustrated, or feel like this is something that they're doing wrong. That is
Mm-hmm.
very developmentally appropriate.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's hard. It's a mindset change.
Yeah,
And in infancy, I definitely believe they need to be growing and gaining. But I don't always feel like a heavy or big baby equates to a healthy baby.
agree. Yes.
So I like to look at, is their skin clear? Are they sleeping? Are they able, to latch and effectively pull milk? Are they getting sick often?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Is there lots of mucus and things that the immune system really shouldn't be having to deal with
Mm-hmm.
such a consistency?
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
and for our older kids, for our already picky eaters, that's where moms and dads are not going to get tied up in guilt, but just really thinking about moving forward
Yes.
in high density food, using food as a tool.
Mm-hmm.
It really does fuel our cells and our body processes. And if we treat it and respect it as such, then we think about, is this helping me? Is this not helping me? Is this helping my child? Is it not?
Mm-hmm.
I think we're just so used to, in American life, we go, go, go. We
Yeah.
need to go pick up food to ingest it for substance, not for health. So it's kind of a paradigm shift and a different way of thinking about living and slowing down schedules,
Mm-hmm.
slowing down and having time to be outside, to have connections.
Mm-hmm.
That's actually really hard to prioritize that in today's modern living.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Mm-hmm.
I think that is a good place to bridge back to my next question. I wanted to just kind of get some insight. What are some of the recommendations from like back to like we're talking about toxic load? I know I've been on just trying to be healthier within my own family, and it's so hard to stay grounded and not get overwhelmed. But from that toxic load of a family's wanting to take a first step, I know a recommendation that you gave me with one of my clients, we were talking about the dirty dozen and bringing that up into my session with the mom. She just started crying because she was so overwhelmed with that concept. So it's like, I don't want anybody to be more overwhelmed than they already are. So
Mm-hmm.
like, what are some ways that you're supporting families to take very small strategic steps to kind of help decrease that toxic load?
Right. Yes. That was definitely what I meant whenever I said respecting like a
Yeah.
family capacity.
Yes.
Everyone I have some moms that tell me 10 things to do this week. They are ready. They want. Other moms have a lot going on. We're working full time. Like, tell me one thing to do this week. And I think that's where our occupation, as occupational therapists, come into such a critical role because it is so typical for us to be there every week, to
Mm-hmm.
be there sometimes even in the home, and to spend time with that family, 45 minutes, 60-minute session. So I feel like we have such an opportunity to say, okay, this week, this is what we're going to focus on. And maybe that just needs to be one step. Maybe that needs to say, we're going to cook one meal for dinner out of the 7 nights this week.
Yeah.
We're going to go to the grocery store on Saturday and we're going to scan a few of the items that we tend to buy each time we go to the store. We're going to maybe find a cleaner swap. So I like swapping foods for cleaner foods. We're going to find a cleaner swap for maybe these 3 items that your toddler wants to eat every single day. So, it really takes some clinical decisions there, meeting family where they are, and then giving them as many steps in the process that they can handle for that week, that time, that month. But what a fortunate situation that we have versus I feel for the physicians, they see them for 10 minutes and then they say, see you in 3 months, see you in 6 months. And it's like, oh no, we need so much more guidance and help in making these changes that are very hard to make, broken down further to where there could be success. I mean, for one family, it was just a goal of changing our intake of soda drinks to water. And we did that over a month. And then it became normal. It was like, oh, we're just drinking water now. And so at that moment, we could say, okay, let's switch out 3 of the meals that we ate out for this week. Let's do some meal prep. Let's do some grocery shopping. Let's think about, one time I'm thinking a mom, she was so overwhelmed. And I just opened up her refrigerator and I was like, you have all the ingredients to make spaghetti. She was like, perfect. I'm going to make spaghetti tonight. It was very, very much just supporting them in that day, in that time in their life, and giving them very concrete, easy things to focus on.
Yeah.
For the bigger, greater goal.
Right.
Eating as many whole, unprocessed foods as possible. Yeah. We can't ingest the amount of chemicals. And I know there's a push now on a federal level to make some of these things not available in our food. And I think that's wonderful, but I always stress the families, we can't wait. We can't wait for those chemicals to get removed in 2028. Your child will be 6 by then, now is the time that we start looking at what needs to not really be allowed in our home, and protecting your family and yourself. And then using basic cleaning products. I think, I'm thinking about what my great grandmother used, baking soda and vinegar for everything. But there really is, I use not like I'm pushing a company, but Aunt Franny's, I get this huge concentrate on Amazon for $13 and it lasts me an entire year. And I mix it with water and that's what I clean the floors with. It's just vinegar and lemon. I mean, I guess I could just buy vinegar and lemon, but I kind of like it more, provided, but it doesn't have to be expensive to go cleaner with your cleaning products and the things that you use. I don't know if people think about fragrances as endocrine disruptors, but I think maybe 10, 20 years from now, that's going to possibly be something that will be more common knowledge. Things that affect our system. And with our digital age, there's electromagnetic frequencies everywhere. So, I think whenever they test products like, oh, this iPad is safe, it's like, this iPad is safe, but is it safe whenever I'm sitting next to my modem wearing my Apple Watch with my phone right here? So the amount of load that we have on electromagnetic frequency level, I think about, where's your baby sleeping? I had a father sleeping, the modem was on the nightstand and he didn't sleep well. And so we just used one of those outlet timers that we got off Amazon for $5 that would flip the Wi-Fi off at night while they were sleeping and then back on during the day. And he's like, I'm sleeping so much better. Again, what is compatible for our bodies? And I don't think all of those those are stressor. Those are stressor. The air that we breathe, I love using air filters in the rooms where we're sleeping. If your baby is an open mouth breather, at least let the air that they're open mouth breathing be not, filtered, so that those adenoids and tonsils get a little bit of a break. So, but at the same rate, I say that, and then I know that those devices put off lots of fields So
Hmm.
put them on the other side of the room.
Right.
It's such a balance, and just being mindful of those little things that we can do, because I think they all kind of add up to the bigger goal of health.
Right.
And I guess I do have to do a plug here, because if you are a parent that really wants to do a deeper dive,
Hmm.
Documenting Hope, the organization that I rant and rave about so much, has an online parent portal. And with that portal, you have an online trail map, is what they call it. And they say, if you're in crisis situation, start here. If you're not, start here at step one. And whenever you click on step one, there's just this very exhaustive list, because this is made for the masses, of all the things that you can consider to make changes in lowering total load, to taking stressors out of your child's life. And I think, because part of it comes down to education, like, oh, I just didn't know
Absolutely.
this wasn't, for that. I didn't know strawberries had, so many pesticides and were number one on the environmental working group's website. I didn't know that. So now I know, and I can choose better. So I don't like to not provide parents with at least the knowledge, and then let them choose what's best for them, their
Absolutely.
family, and their situation. But in that, so back to Documenting Hope's Healing Together, they have the trail map that brings you step one, step two, step three for your child and your family. And then they also have online calls. They have community calls where parents can get on and talk to other parents, and, hey, I tried this. What do you think about this? Has anyone heard of this before? And you just kind of get a community of like-minded people. And then one of my favorite parts is something called a house call, where it's another monthly call that you get on, but they have two of their physicians that are there to answer any questions that that family has. So that has been such a resource. I hop on all the calls. I as many calls as I can, depending on patient load that day. But I love to hear. I always learn something, and
Right.
you'll get the replay email. So Healing Together is something that parents can check out if they want a deeper dive,
Mhm.
and that would be on the Documenting Hope website. So
Very good. That's very
too
helpful.
good of a resource, not to mention.
No, I appreciate that. I appreciate that. And I've been on a couple of times and kind of delved a bit more, but always can learn and guide parents to a resource that's free. So that's amazing for sure, for sure. Is there any other information that you would want to share with listeners that maybe we didn't touch on today that could be helpful, empowering them taking next steps to healthier living?
I think the last thing I would probably say is, as a parent, you know your child the best,
Mhm.
and go with that gut. Go with those inner feelings. Go with what you know
Mhm.
is going to be the best situation for them.
Right.
I don't think we give ourselves enough credit
Mhm.
whenever it comes to that in a medical situation. So I like to empower parents that you're the expert on your child. You know them better than anyone. I'm just giving you guidance. I'm letting you know the resources. I'm letting you know what the books say. I'm letting you know what real life means, like applying book things to real life situations. And then, you are the best decision maker for your child. You were giving your child for um, a perfect purpose, and to just know that you are the right parent for them, and they are the right child for you. Just like kind of that perfect pairing, and respecting that, and really wanting them to feel that
Yes, and that they are enough
they
and
are enough.
they have all that they need
Mm-hmm.
to be able to do what they need to for their child. Absolutely. Yes.
100%.
It's
100%.
so overwhelming. And again, so many resources. I feel like today's age, we have such wealth at our fingertips. It's just to kind of pull it together to help families access it so they can implement. So this has been so wonderful. Thank you. I learned a ton, and I know the listeners will as well. And I know you work through early steps. You do, so the health coach aspect through Documenting Hope, is that something that someone can access through Documenting Hope? Like have a health coach through Documenting Hope?
Documenting Hope's website does have a find a practitioner portal.
Okay.
Health coaches aren't considered practitioners, but they do have a practitioner portal where you can put in your zip code and it will populate physicians and like that, therapists that they have found have this kind of whole body perspective. So I think that is one thing. And then you can go to find a health coach and put in your zip code and populate health coaches that can help you in that way too.
Wonderful.
I like to not really identify as much as a health coach because I cannot turn off my occupational therapy brain. Yeah. So I'm coming to you as an occupational therapist with a framework that has health management as one of our areas of occupation.
Yes.
And added as of 2020 to the occupational therapy framework, health management, helping symptom management through nutrition, lifestyle changes, physical activity. And so I think it's perfect for us.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, there's been such freedom in recognizing that it's part of our scope of practice, because I live it with my family to the best of my ability. So to know that it's within my scope, that I can speak it and educate on it, it's been amazing. So thank you for bringing so much of this to light for families. I think that it's going to reach very far, and hopefully small little dominoes can start falling down and making big changes for families. So thank you for your time today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. This is such a blessing. I love to help families in any way possible.
Well, thank you so much for your time. I hope you found this episode on the feeding solutions helpful. If you would like more information, please follow Sensory Solutions on Facebook or Instagram, or you can always visit our website at www.sensorysolutionsTherapy.com. Thanks so much for joining today, and look forward to seeing you next time.